Hello guys, how's it going? I'm going to start with a very, very favorite philosopher of mine and an intellectual that seems to be a very popular guy these days, especially with modern Stoicism and in general, ancient Rome and ancient Greece in particular. And that figure would be Plato, right? Um, let's make it all giant. Plato, the guy, a philosopher that I'm going to talk about him today. And basically, I'm going to take a quote of his and basically take his own sentence and his own way of thinking and make my own, in a way, theory of life that I basically figured out years ago and has changed my way of existing in life in general. Well, it goes like this. Plato once said, actually, it was, the quote was exactly, en to pan. Right? En to pan, essentially. Basically, all is one. All is one. And so, by that sense, what does that mean, essentially? That can mean everything that basically exists, the way we exist, how we think, what we could possibly be, in a way. Everything at the same time exists, or if they're about to exist, they exist in the realm that we are today, right? And so, not only in that sense, but at the same time in the sense that everything is an extension of something else. Meaning that, for example, I can exist here, the way I am right now, in the form I am right now, because I am in the environment I am. For example, I live in Greece. It's logical for me to know Greek, and and even though there are many other people around the world who basically know their own language, at the same time, we are interconnected. And the way I think, the way I feel, the way I present myself, the way I exist, essentially comes from the place I am. And basically, I have deep connection with that place and the people around me. And it's all a continuation in a way, an interdependence, everything with everything else, right? And so that's just one example. You might as well take an example that makes it go even further. But at the same time, I might as well keep this a bit small because I think this is going to be a long video. Well, I used to have a very intelligent, very wise teacher of mine back in the years of university when I was younger. And he was very smart, very wise to talk about those stuff in an environment where basically I have no reason to I have no, in a way, feedback from that environment in the university to basically know what that person knew. And because he was such a brilliant guy, such a magnificent teacher in my eyes, that he knew essentially that you were here in the university for you to be able to think, me in particular, and anybody else. And so, even though he was making his own lesson in programming, let's say, at the same time, for the most part, he was talking about wisdom and how to basically think for yourself, and what about the ancient Greeks and ancient philosophy and exist in harmony with everything that exists around you. And so he essentially was the one who gave me a lot of experience and a lot of feedback. And if I was able to understand some of those things, those things may as well be good reasons for me to start working more on those things and learn more about myself and more about those things in general. For me to start searching all those things, right? And so I took Plato's theory a bit further. Basically, I try to, in a way, put it in an equation of existence, right? All right, Entopan, all is one, all right? Let's take it a little bit more literally. And what I did, essentially, was to break this question apart. And basically, all right, N, meaning Enna, meaning one, essentially is one. One. What does that one represent? Let's take it as many ways I can possibly think. Well, it may as well be this one, actually. May as well mean it is quantity. Quantity, all right? Meaning that essentially, even though the world seems to be separate in a way, this marker, for example, seems to be separate from me, but at the same time we made this, and it is going to be an extension to help me explain to you what I mean here, in a way. And so he may as well mean that if you take everything, right? If you take this pen and this sponge and this, for example, damn, I forgot the word. This small, this sound, anyways, everything. If you take everything, this lamp and this lamp, for example, if you take everything and you add them all up, it may as well be this, for example, may as well have a value in its quantity 0.0000000, infinite zeros. 0.00000000001. This may as well be the individual value of this marker, and therefore may as well everything be in such small value that if you add them all up, you may as well have the result of 1, that everything is 1. But I really think that is the case, as if to say that you cannot really count everything and everyone that way, as if they're an actual number. Numbers actually help us, metaphorically, describe the world and the nature around us, right? And when it comes to science, when it comes to physics, when it comes to basically everything. If you want to basically understand something, you might as well use the numbers to basically describe and put how much is it of something, right? And so, that one, I was thinking at first, it may as well be quantity, that if you add everything else, everything around this world, in this entire universe, basically it's going to make you 1. Therefore, entopan, everything is 1, right? But at the same time, I don't think that this is going to be a literal case when basically trying to prove this right. But at the same time, I may as well have another way of just trying to describe why he mentioned that. Alright. This. Another reason, essentially, how this can be true is through the lens of quality. Now, what does that mean? How does quality has to do? What does quality has to do with all of that? How does the world essentially is described entopan with when it comes to quality? Well, there isn't. Essentially, there is zero quality in the world, simply because you cannot define it. That's what I said. That's what I would say, essentially. And what basically I want to say when it comes to those things, quantity and quality, when it comes to try to prove this equation, let's say, is that when it comes to quantity, right, essentially it means that everything is basically this world, everything. Where at the same time, quality is that there's not necessarily any particular point where something matters more than the other, meaning that I'm not particularly more important than the sun, for example. Even though in the Western world, we might as well think that this is the case, because the sun exists and everything else exists. We get to have oxygen, we get to have air, we get to have heat, we get to have energy, sunlight for us to live, and all that stuff. Yet, in that sense, we are the same, because me, the humans in general, everything living, nature, trees, the sea, the air, all those stuff basically represent each other. They coexist. And the sun, by extension, coexists with all of that stuff. So therefore, nothing's more important than the other. And so, what I didn't mention earlier is essentially that for you to say that for all is one, when it comes to try to count it down, essentially, you have to consider everything and say that you have to add up everything for you to have one. When in the meantime, when it comes to quality, nothing is more important than the other. And essentially, the one is the unity that you feel, basically. And it's not any different than existing in harmony, just being aware of the world is one with you and a complete another extension of you. And so, that is, by the way, this part is actually mine. For example, this is what Plato said exclusively, essentially. All the rest is all totally mine. You don't have to take this entirely seriously. And it's not what he said. This is what I'm saying. Basically, I took his part and I took essentially some of my own teachings from my other teachers to try and explain this, all right, so this is what we have until now. En to pan, when it comes to quantity essentially means everything, meaning plus infinite. And essentially, if you take everything and you add them up, it's going to be one thing. It's going to be the one thing that basically is what there is. And quality, that nothing really is more important than the other thing. And just getting to know that all is the same thing and the conditions for existing is a damn miracle. But at the same time, everything is important, and at the same time, it is not. Though those two things basically in quality, there's something more important than the other. That's the main idea here. And so, what I'm getting from this essentially is try to find my own piece of existence when it comes to that kind of thinking, all right? Until now, basically, what I'm trying to say is that I am going to use some terms. For example, 1 plus infinity minus infinity and 0. Those things are essentially what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to use these essential terms to describe what I want to see and how I basically made for myself a meaningful theory for meaning in life, essentially. Why bother? Why live? Essentially, I did that accidentally, and now and I'm just trying to make it to make sense in the words. And so, anyways, that was the first thing. Now, another question comes into mind when it comes to all those stuff. All right, and just put this aside. Now we have another board. Now, well, the first question would be en to pan, or otherwise all is one. All right. What does that mean, essentially? That was the first thing that I basically tried to answer through the previous mini board. All right. Now, the second essentially question I came up to this when I tried to see what's the point in all of this. And I came up with what I'm going to tell you now. It's essentially, what is my relationship to this? All right? What is my relationship with this world? With this? Essentially, why do I exist the way I am? And what's the meaning in life in general? Because when I was younger, I had a lot of struggles, basically saying that, why bother? Just give up. Why give a damn about anything? Because when you are in a situation when things are getting so hard in life, life feels so heavy, and by extension, why try? It's so damn hard. And I've come to the realization that the more people struggle, essentially the more cornered they are, the more, in a way, immobilized and trapped, someone could say, the more their minds tend to think more, to find out solutions of what they can do with their lives, and essentially answer to themselves what's important and what isn't, because too much SHITs given to anything else, well, I don't think I'm gonna be good. And so, in such situations, when life seems to be so hard, so impossible, I did manage, in a way, to come out of this in a way that was surprisingly enlightening for me. Meaning that I had that right now the exact tools that I wanted, basically, to give myself meaning. Now, what I've written here, essentially, in my other board, is the first questions that we have. En to pan, meaning all is one. Essentially, what does that mean? What its meaning? And the next question that I come up with is, what is my relationship with this? What do I represent in this? Right? And so, I'm going to try and answer this again when it comes to quantity. Well, the two ways that I just mentioned. Right. First, A. No. That's just A. Alright? It is. When it comes to quantity. Right? When it comes to quantity, alright. Everything is infinite here. So, what am I into all of this? Well, from previously, if I do that en to pan means essentially one, would that mean that if I want to find out for myself what I am, I must see individually this entire one, all is one, that one. If from that I reduce everything else, meaning that essentially I need to write this down rightfully. Essentially, me, let's say, me, cute little me, equals 1 minus wouldn't I have to do that for me to find out what I am? You have 1, right? All is 1. This is the top number. Nothing surpasses that, in a way. Minus, essentially, subtracting what the rest of the world is. In common sense logic, I think that this would be the case. And this is what I would say that I am when it comes to what I am in this world, when it comes to quantity. What do I get? And so, essentially, this number is, not exactly, but is pretty damn close, essentially. It is obviously close to 0. I'm close to nothing. My influence in this world is nothing when literally nothing. No one cares, and not even the universe cares. And that is, in a way, the most accurate yet nihilistic way of basically describing this, right? When it comes to quantity, right? But that's the thing I have to say when it comes to quantity. And I think that is a bit more superficial, right? So let's not give too much importance here, but it is a bit important for what I'm trying to say right now. All right, that is when it comes to quantity, right? But when it comes to quality, basically, won't I have to do the exact same thing? Basically, to try and remove from everything that there is one, and to one, minus everything else. But I said, based on my own reasoning, that everything else is basically zero, because everything is equally important. So, minus zero, essentially. This is what I basically said. That me is essentially what there is, minus what supposedly is the rest of the world. The difference, right? And so it's one. When it comes to quality, I'm everything. When it comes to quantity, I'm basically zero. And so what does that mean, essentially? That someone can say, based on that cute reasoning, that when you start counting things outside of you, they gain value, insignificant, close to insignificant value. And so when you see the things more simply, more relaxed, and basically say that everything is important, yet unimportant at the same time. There's no particular value up and down when it comes to separate things and separate people. Sorry. So therefore, they're all of equal importance. That could say that if I am one when it comes to quality, I'm the same important person as everybody else. Whether I'm just a regular person or I'm just someone who is retired and basically enjoying his life, or I'm just the President of the United States, let's say, for example. And that seemed to be a little bit more enlightening than I thought. It basically showed me that essentially we humans tend to count things when it comes to this stuff. And see, for example, that we count people sometimes as if they're euros or money or dollars, for example. 1, 2, 3, $5 are better than $3. Anyways. Or the thing that is more expensive must be much more valuable than the other that it isn't. And some of those stuff may as well, I get confused sometimes in thinking that this probably seemed a lot of people to think that this is real. When basically, for me, when I was close to, 18, 19 years old, this is what I basically discovered for myself. And this is where I took it a bit one step further, all right? I previously mentioned that I think it's important for us to spend time a little bit on these symbols, all right? Now, one, I decided the measure will be a metric, right? Essentially, one measure will be a principle. For example, one is a principle. Why is that? Because if someone says that I just don't eat candy because I think they're wrong, if that person basically says that I'm going somewhere until a point where I'm not, essentially it is here that someone can say that this is spot zero, and when you go, and this basically this will be plus infinite, right? If you go basically to some point and say I'm not going through that because this is not what I do, what I am. Essentially, that is again a metric, a way of counting. This is where you had nothing, and this is where you had everything you ever wanted. And the end of this, where it starts, where it stops basically being true, is the limit. Essentially, no beyond that. And so, if there is a beginning and an end, intentional end, you might as well say that there is a metric. And for the sake of argument, I'm just saying that everything is one when it comes to principles. And when putting a sense of right and wrong and contrast in your principle, let's say that this is here is 1, right? It could be 25, it could be 60, but there's no way of telling. But anyways, this is what I'm doing here because I'm trying to explain something, right? All right, 1 equals a principle, let's say, for example. Your value, your so-called value that you decide for yourself. This may as well be 1 in another way. Why I'm saying that? Because essentially this can turn out to be that if all people have the same quality and at the same time people would love to find out and quantify, measure basically everything around them, what is right and what is wrong. This was an idea of what I thought would be, in a way, useful. Now, anyways, moving on. Essentially, there's also this 1, ace, right? There's also 0, which is as we represent as nothingness. Nothing or nothingness. And there's also infinity and minus infinity. Essentially, infinity is everything all right, and minus infinite essentially means minus everything from the opposite side. All right, now please let's hold our horses together. Now, this is what we have come up with, what I've come up with. Essentially, these principles may as well seem that 1, it's a principle, what you decide to do, what you decide to be, what you don't. 0 essentially means nothing or nothingness, and plus infinity is everything, minus infinity, everything from the opposite side. All right. So, where I have left off is that when it comes to quantity, what is my relationship with this world, essentially? And I try to answer this. When it comes to quantity, it is everything minus everything else. It is me, 0. I make no difference in this entire world when it comes to just numbers. I exist, I'm getting born, I die, then I'm getting born, I live some years, and then I die, right? But when it comes to quality, essentially, it is me equals everything else already, minus the perception that we had as value when it comes to quality, 0, that everything essentially is the same as everything else, 0, essentially means that I am the world when it comes to quality, because everything is equally important, everything and everyone, essentially. I'm just as important as in the entire world itself, because in a way I may as well can make my own world, right? And this is the part that I find very interesting right now. This is the part. Essentially, what I was doing is, if we as humans may as well decide our own actions, right? And we do have a sense of right and wrong. We do have a tendency to either act in ways that we later find out to be wrong, and at the same time, we need to coexist as a society that we are and we exist today, right? And the thing that basically thought out right now was this. So basically give me infinite energy. All right. What if I chose to act in a certain way? Meaning that essentially meaning that the world, even though it's infinite, we exist in a way that can make everything else other than what is true today become true. Meaning that I may as well imagine myself 2-3 years from now and continue making videos and essentially seeing that I'm making huge progress, and essentially other people seem to find this extremely interesting or the exact opposite way. And in a way I may as well think of myself of doing something else then, because I'm here doing what I'm doing right now, and myself is there, and myself then is the same person doing something else, and that is the separation between me and then, right? In the end, if, for example, let's say that I had a mirror, right? I used to think to myself that, okay, these values, 1, 0, and infinity minus infinity, essentially exist in the entire world. What would all of those things be, right? 1, the entire world. 0, everything else individually. And infinity, at the same time, essentially it is everything else beyond that individual thing that you're thinking. For example, this marker is 0, everything else is infinite when it comes to it. 1 is this plus the infinity and everything else around it, right? So, if I thought to myself that those values, 1, 0, and infinity is basically exist in the entire world, basically, for some reason I've came up with a realization that the mirror, what would that be, essentially? The mirror seems to be exactly what you throws, what you throw at him, what you throw at it. Meaning, essentially that if I have some principles that I think that kindness is important, and I throw in a way that kindness, I speak to another person in a way, in a kind way. For example, let's take this, the one that we just said, that one, right? 1 of mine plus another person, for example, another, what we say, 0. Oh no, it's not 0 actually. It's when it comes to quantity 0. Yeah, I think I messed this up. Anyway, yes, I think I remember what I was trying to do, right? I sometimes think of human interactions and behaviors when it comes to the values I just introduced. 1 plus infinite minus infinite, yeah, and 0. I sometimes see human interactions and human behaviors and basically try to say what is that behavior, for example, these values, right? What does human interactions and behaviors represent? How are these behaviors are represented through these kind of values? And just like I mentioned earlier, that 1 is principle, right? And so if I say that I have some principle and I try to treat others with that principle, on you, for example, your value as a person, regardless when it comes to quantity or quality, is going to determine how will that come out. Meaning that I have a principle, 1, kindness, let's say. It's important to treat each other with respect in a way. Plus, what is your value as a person essentially is the result that I'm going to get, basically, when trying to interact with other people. This thing here, the value that I just plugged in a way, that I just performed, plus the value of the person. This one is important because I will see the value of a person when it comes to reaction of the result. For example, have you ever found yourself being in a situation when you essentially believe and genuinely try to act in the most kind ways possible, but that didn't happen for you to turn out to turn out very well, because for whatever reason apparently the other person may as well disagreed. Anyways, and what I'm trying to say with this is, when essentially I see the interaction, I can see my result. And basically on the result that I get, if it's, for example, -5, right? -5. The interaction went bad in general. You have to have a fight with that person. You're going to realize that basically what you're going to throw at that person is basically minus value, let's say 4. This is what makes sense. And so, this is to say that when you have your own principles and say that you are a certain person that you want to be and act in a certain way, what you say is what you do in a way, and try to maintain that. The behavior of other people's on you is clear. You get to know if they respond to the virtues and personality traits and principles that you said you're going to act and behave with them. And you're going to see clearly how the other person acts when it comes to the things that you believe to be true, or in general, if they like you or not. And so there is a way for me to say, you know what, I don't think I have a lot of things in common with someone, because I'm trying to make the things that I think are right, performing with the values that I said I'm going to act with, and it doesn't seem to go very well. And so, sometimes my suggestion was that forget about principles, forget about a sense of right and wrong, do everything in a way that essentially infinites everything. Meaning that if I decide to act the way I want and fill it basically with energy, and essentially say that I'm going to be so damn awesome, in the sense of I'm going to be charismatic, I'm going to be energized, happy to be alive, anyways, and all those stuff, and just release it in a way. Feel like your chest is damn opening like a door, right? Like you're doing this essentially, and just pour it everything upon the world. Essentially, regardless if there is a person that responds negatively to you in a way. Let's say that this is just a negative person. You still get the result that you are the same with the things that you said you are. Meaning that when you say to yourself that you're going to stay in a mood, in alignment, in how you want to be, essentially you have no other choice but to live this as the result, and basically making everything else irrelevant. Everything is unimportant when you decide to act in the way that you want to act. And that is basically when I discovered this in a way. I happened to be in Italy and making a familiar trip years ago, close to, I believe it was 2016, 10 years ago, literally. And so I was thinking of those stuff, and I happened to have a very strong emotional trigger that basically having all those stuff for me to think, right? Essentially, the one, the infinities, plus and minus, zero, right? All those stuff seems to be very interesting for me to make equation fun and represent life and life values when it comes to those stuff. And I just tried to answer to myself with all my might, because I was extremely emotionally charged. And basically I said to myself, all right, now that you know all this stuff, what is the reason that you exist? What's the reason? What's the meaning? Why do you exist the way that you do? What are you here to do? And so in a way that started for me to start, that started unlocking in my mind. And this is basically its variation for the time being. I think I've said this stories, that particular theory, many times in the past. But in general, me realizing basically that when it comes to Entopan, essentially, all is one. Okay, I can see this. But then I realized I discovered the right after of those things with my own individual work and thinking into this, basically saying that, okay, beyond that, what does that mean? What is my meaning into all of this? How do I exist? What is that relationship? What's my relationship, maybe? What's my relationship with this beautiful world? What am I here to do for? And I can safely say that this is the life-defining moment of my life, in the sense of I never stop trying, I never stop having faith in me, I never stop giving up, essentially, because I was doing what? I was filling me up with energy just by saying that I am infinite because I simply chose to be. It's exactly just like Carl Jung was saying, that I am what I choose to become, only in the more convoluted and unreasonably complicated way. But essentially this is the beauty. It's just I took one quote, Entopan, and because I wasn't really satisfied, and I had a brilliant teacher helping me with some more of philosophy and some terminologies, one, plus and minus, infinite and zero. Basically, I took inspiration from both of those individuals, my teacher and Plato, and made my own theory of existence myself. And tried to say, okay, what am I in this entire all is one? And I tried to basically answer this, literally. When it comes to quantity, okay, me equals everything minus everything else. Zero. Zero, right? When it comes to quality, you can really determine quality. It's human construct. It's a thing that we decide for ourselves. Something has quality because we determined ourselves that it has, just like the quantity one. And so, when it comes to quality, it is me, again, equals one, everything else, minus what the value I seem to be, equals one, everything. And so, at the same time, I seem to be nothing and everything. Because the one is basically physical and literal, when in the mind and in non-physical terms, in a way, here is the essence. We're mindful creatures, and this is what we can understand from everything else. And so, after I realized that, I managed to figure out a step further. And essentially that step further was, alright, when it comes to human interactions, can those values be enforced in a way? Can they be implemented? And I tried basically to think of a mirror, because when I was younger I was trying to essentially exercise my ways of talking for me to be more communicative and popular around other people, right? And so, when I was trying to talk to a mirror, basically, the mirror was an absolute zero for me, because exactly whatever principle and values you throw at it, it's going to return back to you. It receives everything but does not keep. That's exactly what the mirror does. And so I thought to myself that mirror itself has some value in it. That it has the trait of neutrality. It's neutral, essentially, it's zero. In the sense of, but that let's say that one is that one is essentially kindness, right? And you have a mirror here. If you have one and throw this at the mirror, what the mirror is going to do? Nothing in particular, right? But it's going to return back the favor in a way. And in that way of thinking, ironically, I was thinking to myself that a lot of people actually act like this, neutrally. Very typical, very boring, I could say. And so they had no real personality. Or they were afraid, basically, to show some traits of their own. And that was basically an example that I don't really want to follow, essentially. And I thought to myself that when I was myself mirrored, basically I was sending back to the other people what I was getting from them. For example, if a person is rude, I was going to be rude to them back or whatever. And that was the logic that I had years ago, by the way. And if a person treats me with kindness, I'm going to treat them with kindness back instead at the same time. In any way, I was doing myself whatever I was receiving on their end, right? And so this is when I realized that this is the behavior of a mirror, zero, meaning that it is the no behavior. And so, if I want to say to myself that I'm a character, that I have a character that is basically worthy and I deserve